Picture two people who were once genuinely inseparable, meeting for coffee every week, finishing each other's sentences. The kind of friends everyone around them quietly envied. Now picture those same two people, 3 years later, still meeting to reschedule a dinner that has been postponed 6 times without a single moment of conflict between them. You didn't lose your friends because something broke. You lost them because proximity, the quiet engine running underneath every close relationship you have ever had, simply ran out of fuel. What nobody explains is exactly how that engine worked and whether anything realistic can actually restart it. Think about the last time you looked at your phone and saw a name you once knew better than your own schedule and felt that small, specific ache of someone you haven't actually spoken to in months. There's no falling out to point to, no argument to replay, no clear moment where things went wrong between you. That absence without a cause is one of the most quietly common experiences of adult life, and almost nobody talks about it honestly. The closeness didn't dissolve because the caring stopped. It dissolved because the system that was quietly building it, without either of you noticing, simply disappeared. Understanding what that system actually was is the only way to understand what you'd need to rebuild it. The friendships you made before 30 didn't happen because you were more open, more charming, or more willing to try. They happened because the environment around you was quietly doing the heavy lifting on your behalf. School put you in the same room as the same people every single day for years at a stretch. You didn't choose your classmates, and you didn't need to. Repetition chose for you, wearing down the awkwardness until closeness just appeared. University compressed that even further, stacking shared lectures, shared housing, and shared late nights into a single, overwhelming season of contact. Early workplaces ran the same system: a fixed desk, a fixed team, the same coffee run at the same time every morning. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect. Familiarity alone, without any special chemistry, generates genuine warmth between people. You weren't exceptional at making friends back then. You were surrounded by a machine that made friendship almost unavoidable. The question worth sitting with is what happened the moment that machine quietly switched off. Once the structure dissolved, something else moved in to fill the space: obligation. Work doesn't just take your hours. It takes the mental bandwidth you'd need to even think about calling someone. By the time you've cleared your inbox, handled dinner, and put the kids to bed, the evening is already gone. You tell yourself you'll reach out on the weekend, but the weekend arrives carrying its own list of things that couldn't fit anywhere else. This is the postponement pattern, and it's almost invisible while it's happening. Every individual delay feels completely reasonable. You're tired, you're stretched, the timing isn't right. But reasonable delays, stacked week after week, quietly become months. And months become the version of a friendship where you mostly just like each other's photos. The cruel part is that no one is choosing distance. They're just choosing the thing in front of them every single time. So ask yourself, when did you last make a plan with a friend that didn't get rescheduled at least once? And if geography is already making time scarce, moving only makes the math worse. That moving truck doesn't just carry furniture. It carries the whole invisible architecture of your social life. Every coffee shop you defaulted to, every neighbor you'd wave at without thinking, every Friday that turned into something because someone was simply nearby. Proximity wasn't the backdrop to those friendships. It was the engine that kept them running without anyone having to try. When you move, you don't lose the people. You lose the conditions that made seeing them effortless and automatic. And the phone in your pocket promises to close that gap. But a text thread is not the same as a Tuesday evening that just happens. Digital connection requires you to schedule what used to be accidental, and most people never make that trade consciously enough to survive it. Studies on friendship formation consistently show that repeated, unplanned contact is what builds real closeness, and moving strips that down to almost nothing overnight. You're not grieving a fight or a falling out. You're grieving a geography. The question that follows is whether something internal, something you're willing to show another person, could ever replace what the map used to do for you. There's a message sitting in your drafts right now, or something close to it, a text you started and never sent. You thought about reaching out to someone you genuinely miss, and then you talked yourself out of it. Not because you don't care, but because caring started to feel like a risk. Somewhere after 30, most people develop a quiet rule. Don't appear needy. Don't impose. Don't let anyone see the gap. Competence becomes the face you wear in public, and vulnerability gets filed away as something you've outgrown. So you wait for the other person to reach out first, and they're doing the exact same thing, waiting for you. The silence between two people who miss each other isn't indifference. It's two sets of armor clanking together in the dark. And the longer that silence runs, the more weight it carries. Until a simple text feels like it needs an explanation. What you're left with are friendships that still exist on paper but haven't been fed in years. And nobody ever decided that was okay. There's a concept in sociology called the third place, and it might explain more about your friendships than anything else in this video. Home is the first place, work is the second, and the third is everything in between. The pub, the barbershop, the diner, the community center where you showed up without a reason. These spaces didn't require you to plan a visit or justify your presence, and that frictionless access was exactly what made them so powerful for building closeness. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg spent decades arguing that third places were the invisible backbone of community life, and that without them, people slowly lose the connective tissue that holds friendships together. In the United States alone, more than 100,000 bars and community gathering spots have closed since the 1980s, and the ones that remain are harder to reach, more expensive, or quietly replaced by a coffee shop where everyone sits alone with headphones. You can be surrounded by people and still be structurally isolated, because proximity without repetition doesn't build anything. The anonymous coffee shop isn't a third place. It's a waiting room where strangers happen to share a roof. And when the last informal structure disappears, friendship stops being something that grows around you and becomes something you have to build entirely on your own. The structure that once built your friendships is gone, but the mechanism behind it wasn't magic. It was just repetition. You didn't become close to people because you were unusually charming or lucky. You saw them again and again until closeness was the natural result. That's the part adults forget when they wonder why new friendships never seem to deepen. Proximity was doing the work quietly, and now you have to do it yourself. Not through grand gestures or long overdue catch-up calls that feel like job interviews, through small, recurring contact that asks almost nothing. A standing coffee on the second Saturday of the month, a voice note on a Tuesday, the same walk with the same person 3 weeks in a row. What makes these habits work isn't their size. It's that they happen again. The invitation that matters most isn't the one that sounds impressive. It's the one you actually send twice. Specificity is what separates a real offer from a polite noise. Not, "We should hang out," but, "Are you free Thursday at 6?" Closeness doesn't announce itself. It accumulates in the small moments you choose to repeat, until one day, the friendship feels like it was always there. Friendship after 30 doesn't ask for grand gestures. It asks for something harder, which is showing up when nothing is forcing you to. The systems that once did that work for you are gone, and you already know they're not coming back. What you have instead is the choice to reach out, to suggest the walk, to send the message that doesn't need a reason. That choice, made repeatedly over months and years, is what closeness actually is. It's not a feeling that arrives and stays. It's a practice you maintain, the way you maintain anything that matters. The research doesn't promise it will feel natural at first, and it won't, because intentional effort never quite wears the same ease as accidental proximity. But ease was never the point. The people who stay close after 30 aren't luckier. They're just quietly doing the work most people assume someone else will start. You are a system, and systems can be rebuilt.